Hello. Oh, hey, we're live. Look at that. Welcome to our first ever live stream. Yay! I'll eventually get a Steam Deck or a Stream Deck and have sounds to play. But as you know, I am Chad Kirchner. I'm the VP of content here at EV Pulse, and we're going to start doing live streams on the regular so that you guys can interact with us. We can talk about current topics, all that jazz. And it would not be anything EV Pulse related without Mr. Craig Cole, our senior editor. Hi, Craig. Welcome.
Hello, Chad. How are you?
I am just doing fantastic. It looks like you are in a blurry, haunted house horror kind of situation.
Yes.
Or your background's incredibly drunk.
It's some maps, as you can see here and here.
Looks like of the United States.
Middle.
The world.
And the world, indeed.
We have a guest. Holy crap. We actually have a guest for our first live stream. We're going to talk about Porsches today with Mr. Calvin Kim from Porsche Cars North American. Hi, Cal. Welcome.
Good afternoon from my side.
Yeah,
a very venerable colleague.
We all sort of go way back, which I think is a good opportunity to have our first guest be somebody who's been on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, when it comes to
a guest that we do like. Let's not forget.
And he's also a guest that we do like. And his company, while not necessarily quote unquote mainstream, they're doing a lot in the electric vehicle space. And we're going to ask him all the questions that he won't answer because he works in PR. But he did tell us off camera that if you give us super chats, he'll answer those questions. So keep that in mind. Actually, no, he won't. But your supers are still appreciated. Calvin, what do you do at Porsche?
I'm a product spokesperson. Specifically, the range of products I cover are all the four doors. So Cayenne, Macan, Panamera, Taycan. I also do a lot of the technology communications. I've worked on the eFuels, for example, as well as lately working with our colleagues at Porsche Digital regarding software updates, CarPlay enhancements that have come to our model line. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. I mean, just doing those cars. If you think about the breadth of cars that I'm dealing with here, from Cayenne Turbo GT all the way down to to a Macan 4-cylinder, and then on the other hand you have a Panamera Turbo SE hybrid, and then just a regular Panamera or Taycan rear drive. It's pretty broad. The types of people that I work with, the objectives that we have, and then you add the technology component into it, and it's never a dull moment.
The eFuels. I know that's not specifically what we were going to talk about, but you bring it up, and I know Craig has a deep fascination for eFuels, probably because
it's fascinating.
His daily driver is a 36 Ford, so
that is not a daily driver, but it is a driver.
If you find him on YouTube, though, he's got a very popular driving video of it. It's a really cool car. But I've had some discussions lately where people will ask, what's a future look like for gas-powered enthusiast cars? And because the idea of everything's going electric, what happens to these? And Porsche has long been a brand that really stands by its owners. You're one of the few companies that, outside of maybe Mercedes as well, who I can get like updated head units for cars that are 30 years old to get CarPlay added. I can get original replacement parts. So it's clearly very important to Porsche to continue to support those people. So how does eFuels fit into that strategy, and sort of what's your take on the enthusiast car community that doesn't want to give up a gas car?
Yeah, great question, because that's the whole point of eFuels, is we don't want people to have to give up their gas cars, especially our classic car owners. An interesting factoid is that almost 80% of all the Porsches ever made are still on the road. They're still being driven. So, and you go to Cars and Coffee in your neighborhood, and if it's got enough cars in there, you'll see 256s, 911s from 64 all the way to 23.
I mean, 80% is a huge number. You would think just
Absolutely.
attrition from crashes or something, or people that do track and end up smashing their car would be higher than just 20%.
Exactly. But that's been kind of our driving focus with our very wonderful and amazing heritage parts business. We have a classic center down at the office in Atlanta. In fact, we remodeled it as part of a building expansion project, and we can handle a lot more cars, and it's full. People love their classic cars, and it's crazy because there's so much demand that they have to kind of limit capacity. And you think they'd only be getting the $1 million overhauls and stuff, but no, you'll see there's a 96 Boxster in there. There's like 944. There's like regular cars along with 356s and first gen 911s and stuff like that. So it's critical that we maintain that bloodline, as it were, of parts and accessories, so that people can continue enjoying this big capital purchase. We know we're expensive, so we want to make sure you get tremendous value for your purchase.
But eFuels are also right now expensive as well.
Yes.
So
you're only doing them as a trial stage right
Correct.
now, right?
We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns with eFuels, distribution, how, I guess distribution is really the number one big issue. But honestly, I'm probably not the right person to talk to specifically about the difficulties of breaking into the petroleum market. But let it be known that they are working on it. They've tested it. They've used it in motorsports applications. They've used it in a 993, a company on 993, to test to represent the air-cooled cars. We did a program with some media earlier this year down in Chile, where the pilot program is in Haruoni, that HIF set up. HIF is the company that's actually doing the legwork. And it was amazing because a lot of people expected some difference in driving or performance, but in actuality, from our side, there was none. So the interesting moment was as you're driving, the light bulb moment goes off going, wait a minute, it's the same. Yes, that's exactly the point. It's designed to be integrated into the current petroleum network without any changes. All the infrastructure that currently exists to transport petroleum from a port inland, it's the same. There's no difference. The pumping systems, the energy density, all that stuff is identical. And the cars, from our limited experience, albeit probably more than anybody else right now, it's not an issue. The Panameras that we had down there in Chile had no modifications done to them. So whatever change there was with the fuel, the volumetric efficiency, whatever the BTUs, wasn't enough to upset any of the sensors or the computers. And I'm not saying Porsches are the most sensitive cars to fuel, but they are. When you're driving a performance car, especially now that most of the Panamera line is turbocharged, you do need a quality fuel to keep the car running at some sort of efficiency.
So just to clarify, actually a question from the chat. These are not on sale yet to customers, right? You're just using it internally.
Correct. We're still in the testing phase. The idea here is after I'm the PR guy, so I have to say words like this, but seriously, just knowing and talking to them, it's a rigorous testing phase, because you can imagine the mayhem that would ensue if someone's priceless 550 Spider or something, something happened to that engine. So there, literal rigorous testing process going on, making sure that when we say it's compatible, it literally is actually compatible. Yeah, TBD. The actual time when it launches is TBD, but every time I talk to them, it's getting closer and closer. Hopefully we'll be able to get some here in the States to try out on our roads, and with our gas working together. That's kind of the short-term goal at the moment.
Yeah, you have to get some in Atlanta so that we can come down and drive around in it. Just to give a shout out. Just to give a shout out to a colleague of both Craig and I's, I believe Tim Stevens was on that eFuels program, and he seemed pretty impressed. So he's been in this business a long butt-ass time, which we should probably beat, but we won't. electric. That's sort of you do more than just electric Porsches right now, but I believe your plan is to have all Porsches electric before too long. So, what's the current sort of status of Porsche and its electrification, and what can you speak to of what's coming soon?
I mean, near term is electrified wise. We've got the new Cayenne, the plug-in hybrid with the bigger battery, more range, more power, more usable in e-power mode. Actually, I didn't need air quotes. It's actually called e-power mode. So yeah, in e-power
Don't worry,
mode,
nobody's watching this.
and that's this year. After that, I think I'm beating around the bush just because I'm trying to build some tension. But the Macan, I don't think that's a secret. The electrified Macan's coming out. We haven't announced an exact date, but it should be the reveal should be early next year, I believe, in 24. After that, we have already mentioned that this will have a electrified sports car. I was going to say a mid-engine sports car, but that's
no, too specific.
Mid battery.
Yeah, mid battery, but it will be an electrified sports car that will occupy the space that the current 718 occupies. I guess that's the we've said that already, and then after that we'll have a Cayenne, so a bigger SUV than compared to the Macan. That takes us all the way to 25. So,
right.
Yeah.
Are Porsche customers asking for electrification?
Do
they know about it? Do they? Because it's such a brand with such heritage. I imagine they might be a little resistant.
There are two types. Well, there's more than two, but for the sake of this question that you're asking, there are two types of customers that we have. One is the one that wants Porsche to be the most advanced, the most up to date. They want like holograms, and they want like why. I want my car to sing to me when I unlock the door. Like, it's ridiculous. I want whatever. Do
they want their car to fart?
No. On the flip side, we have customers that want like James Dean's 550 Spider, like literally that car. That's it. I want that car. Or a 911. There are people mad at us that we succumbed to a certain French car company and changed the car name from 901 to 911. Like there's that group of people too. It's tough because it's, especially with electrification, from my experience with our customers that have tried it and then bought into it, it's one of these things where at first they didn't like it because they didn't understand it. They don't know what it is. They're used to what they have. They have a good relationship with the car that they're in at the moment. And they don't want something different. Why should they, right? They're happy. Then maybe they bring their car in for a service, or it's got a flat tire, and hey, sorry, the car's going to be here overnight while the tire gets shipped in. Take this Taycan for the night. Then they drive it, and they go, hey, wait a minute. This is freaking rad. And the next thing you know, they're fully on board. They're buying wall box charger to install, getting it hardwired. They've got a custom order for a Taycan 4S Cross Turismo with paint to sample. I mean, it really works that way. And now they're super happy, and they don't drive their gas car anymore. And it's just, they bought it just as a test, just to, am I really into this? This is just going to be a weekend car. And it turns out, due to its ease of use and just everyday livability, that it becomes their main car. And that wasn't the expectation. So I've seen that a lot. Which is good. And honestly, that's probably the best way, because those owners are the ones that will tell their friends, right. And they're, hey, they're like, oh, you bought an electric car? You're crazy. I'm not buying an electric car till it gets 1,200 miles of range and it charges in 13 seconds.
Never mind, you go 8 miles to work each day.
I know.
You need 1,200 miles of range.
Yeah, for some reason. It's a lifetime battery, is it?
Yeah, all right.
And then you can have that conversation, because only the people that have driven an EV really can speak from a position of authority when it comes to real world application. Because I mean, hey, I'm a PR guy, so I've tried it and it doesn't work. But the moment I get somebody in the car, or our dealer partners do, it's far more effective, because
butts and seats.
Yeah, butts and seats. You don't understand the pros and cons of EVs until you really start driving it. I mean, a lot of people, turns out, don't like going to gas stations on Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. on the way home from dinner, thinking about going to work on Monday, and they forget. And or as they're pulling into their neighborhood, like, oh man, the fuel light just turned on. I got to go to work tomorrow. Do I get gas now or gone? That doesn't happen.
future me, present me always thinks that future me has more time than I do. Like, oh,
Exactly.
I'll hold on. I'll wait till tomorrow. I'll just do it in the morning. And then in the morning comes around and you're like, why didn't I do this last night? And
Yeah.
So you've been around for a bit. How does the EV transition compare going from a 993 to a 996, going from air cooled to liquid cooled?
I mean, there's two stories there. 993, 996. Number one is obviously the engineering. The emissions regulations are changing. You can only do so much with air cooled. But then the other story is process. And honestly, from the 93 to 96, the process of Porsche becoming the company that is today, that's where that started. To me, that's like really the transition from chapter 1 to chapter 2 of Porsche. So a huge amount of time, right, from inception to when 996 came out back in 98 or 99 or whatever. That's chapter 1. Then chapter 2 is like 996, 997, all the way up to 991, and then going into the plug-in hybrid era, where we experimented with the GT3R hybrid as a Nürburgring. Then we had the 919 hybrid, the 918. We had Panamera, Cayenne, both mild hybrids and plug-ins. I think the transition to electrification will be easier in some regards because a lot of those processes are done. So the idea of how to tune a car, how to manage a car, we were weaned into electrification. A lot of the technology, like thermal management technology we learned on the 918, is in the Taycan and is in Panamera and Cayenne PHEV. The way that you keep a battery safe and healthy, we've already kind of known how to do that. The big differences I think now are just going to be understanding what the levers of emotionality are. Like, I hate to use the German English, but the purism, that's a fun word, right? Dynamism, purism, all those, the tradition. How do you integrate those attributes into this computerized car? Having spoken with engineers and product planners, they know that is a big deal, and they are injecting that. I mean, you guys have driven Taycan, and it took a while, but the moment I got to spend some time in the Taycan myself on a twisty road, the light bulb turned on, and I realized, wait a minute, this is a Porsche. It drives really a lot better than anyone that has ever given it credit for. And it should, because guess what? A lot of the suspension engineers and the validation engineers from the mid-engine group that did 718 moved to Taycan. So yeah, of course, you drive it hard, it drives like a mid-engine car. It's kind of crazy.
The thing that I like to tell other automakers when we have very off the record conversations about, what do you like going on in the industry? Who do you like? Who do you think's doing well? I always like to bring up Taycan when it's an automaker talking about sports cars, because the Taycan feels like a Porsche first, and just powered by electricity instead of an EV that is trying to be a Porsche. And I think that that's a very significant distinction. And yes, you can still tell the car's a little bit heavier and stuff. You can't hide the weight really, really well. But man, the Taycan is fun on a back road. And in addition, like some of the intangibles that come with just driving a sports car are duplicated in Taycan in very interesting ways. The steering feels pretty good. Having a 2-speed gearbox, that when the PDK shifts, when you accelerate, like that's a cool feeling. It kind of kicks the little one of downshifts. Like it still feels a little bit mechanical. Like, I'm not going to say it feels as mechanical as let's say a modern GTR or something, but it does communicate with you what's going on in a way that a lot of other sporty EVs don't. I was kind of hoping the EV6 from Kia, the GT, would deliver on that, but it didn't really have any of the fizz. Technically brilliant, no fizz. I'm interested to see, what the Ioniq 5N does in terms of fizz. But otherwise, the other kind of sporty EVs are, look, we're starting with an EV, we're going to add the sporty bits, where this really feels like a Porsche, which gives me hope for future electrified sports cars from the brand. I'm super excited for whatever replaces the 718 because that's kind of my style of car, and it's just it. And we'll address some 911 stuff here in a little bit. We've got some preloaded questions related to that, but
I have a question for you, Calvin.
Yeah.
Can you give us a general overview of the whole Taycan lineup, because it's complicated, different models and trim levels. It's not as bad as the 911. I look at the 911 page, I go cross-eyed because there's so many different variants of the car. But just give us an overview of what Taycan is.
Once upon a time, long living. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so basically, there's two Taycan body shape, the two pillars, if you will, the sedan and the Turismos. We'll talk about the Turismos later, but for the moment, let's focus on the sedans. We've got 5 sedans in that lineup. Taycan, that's just the regular Taycan. Taycan 4S, Taycan GTS, Taycan Turbo, and Taycan Turbo S. The Taycan, the regular car, has just rear-wheel drive. It's the purest form of Taycan, if you will. It's the one that honestly is sweetheart of a car to drive, just because the steering feel it's all there. That is the close, the weight issue is the most reduced in that car. Now, granted, because it's rear drive only, you don't get the prodigious acceleration out of corners, but it's for the type of person that values momentum driving. I think the rear drive Taycan is the exemplary choice. The 4S all-wheel drive, you can get it much like the rear drive. You can get it with the small battery, the big battery. With the big battery, it scoots along just nicely. With that front motor, great if you're in snow belt. You put some all seasons or some winter tires on there. The dang thing's indestructible. I mean, we saw some footage of that earlier.
Winter tires are key. You can go
just
anywhere
absolutely phenomenal.
Winter tires. Put them on your cars, folks.
Yeah. Then we've got I'm going to skip the GTS for a second, just because it doesn't make sense in my train of thought here. But so we'll go to the Turbo. Turbo is kind of the GT car of the lineup, and I don't mean GT in the Porsche sense, just in the overall automotive sense, the grand touring car. It's wicked fast, great range with the right wheels on it. All the options you want are available. The whole PTS catalog's available. It's honestly, I don't know. I've had people buy a Turbo and go, this is too much, and then go downgrade to a 4S because it's so vicious. But then there's the true crazy people that go to the Turbo S, and that's insane in the membrane. You can feel your eyeball squishing in launch control. That has the least amount of range, and it better because it's got the biggest motors, the biggest inverters. I mean, that's the value proposition, right?
Yeah.
Interestingly, we've got the GTS sedan right into the middle, and it's kind of a unique car in that lineup because while it uses the powertrain from the Turbo, the power levels are closer to the 4S, and it's done that way on purpose to keep thermal management under control, to let the car drive harder longer before firing up all the fans and all that stuff, opening up all the radiator shutters.
The GTS models are always the sweet spot.
Yeah,
it is.
It's
And
my
I will
favorite
say
with
that-
Taycan too.
And you notice it most in the Taycan. It has a completely different suspension calibration. The electric sport sound is different. Because there's no engine and because there's no exhaust, they took that energy into the kinematics, the driving experience, and it really it's a different car. It's so bizarre to say that, but in a 911, if you drive all the 911s and you drive the GTS, okay, I see where this slots. On the Taycan, it's different. You drive all the Taycans and you get in a Taycan GTS, and this is a different car, and it's just because they work so hard on that. Likewise, which is why on the Cross Turismo side, which is our hashtag long roof life, our wagon, as you can see here, the GTS is not a Cross Turismo, which is lifted and has body cladding. On the GTS, it's the only sport Turismo. So basically, it's the Cross Turismo body without the additional plastic cladding, but it uses a more sedan-like suspension calibration and sedan ride height. So you get the best of both worlds.
And you do the Sport Turismos in Europe, correct? Across the lineup?
Yes.
Or?
Yep. In Europe, they get the full range of sedans, the full range of cross Turismos, and the full range of Sport Turismos.
So for in the US, having a Sport Turismo GTS instead of a cross, is that because GTS is supposed to be the more pure experience?
That's right.
Is that okay?
That's right. That's right. And it's wild because it drives differently than the sedan, but not in a bad way. It because of the additional weight in the back, it actually feels more like a regular car, whereas the GTS sedan feels more like a mid-engine. So very amazing from my perspective, how much calibration work went into those two cars.
I've briefly driven a Turbo S Sport Turismo U or I'm sorry, Cross, because you supplied one for our first Autopia event.
And you were with me in LA
for
GTS.
For GTS,
actually.
and honestly, that was such a. I love that car. That's the one I would buy of the group.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Turbo S is. I mean, is it mind-bogglingly quick? Yes, absolutely. But I don't need to go that fast. It's that's not necessary.
Look at that.
Oh, look at that. That was a lot of videos ago.
It was cold.
It was cold. It was cold. There was snow on Angeles Crest. Yeah. And I kept the chase team kept thinking that I was having issues because I would stop to film some B-roll or whatever, and then they would pull up in front of me like I had a little stalker. But no, great car.
Always unnerving.
Yeah, it was a little bit. But and the Sport Turismo gets the well, you get on the Cross as well, but the cool chromatic roof that can darken certain parts and do cool designs.
You can get that roof. You can get that roof on any of the Taycans now, on all the Taycans, including the sedan.
I would check that box too, since I have infinite money, and that's
sunroof, anti-convertible. I'm sorry, I never want a sunroof. I never want a glass roof. I never want a convertible.
I like convertibles. That's again why the 718 replacements.
The only convertible I want is maybe a Rolls-Royce Dawn.
A good convertible.
I could do that. Otherwise, nothing.
Yeah. So when I sell Rector Media and get my payout, then I'll call Cal up and be like, "Hook me up on a Porsche," and he'll be like, "I can't," and then we'll just life will go on. But
oh, look at that!
Look at that! That's some cool stuff. Mm-hmm. We've got producers in the background making things happen. It's awesome. Electrification. And well, first off, actually, let me ask, since you mentioned it, that the Turbo is more like a GT car, but not a Porsche GT. Does the ethos of Porsche's GTs make sense in an electric? Could we see? I'm trying to ask this in a way that you could actually answer.
I will butt in and save you.
Yeah.
Yes. The answer is absolutely. We had two concepts. One more conceptual and one kind of real concept, and that's the Mission R race car, and then the GT4E Performance, which is going out on tour right now to figure out how it'll work. I'll focus on the GT4E Performance because that's a real car, right? That's a 718 platform that they electrified. They did a little bit more than just put Taycan parts in it, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just say that they did more than that. It's the 900-volt system. It's amazing because it basically is a Carrera Cup car, but electrified. It does similar lap times, just in a very different way, obviously, because the powertrains are different. But the idea is that's a demonstrator to see if electrified racing, customer racing. Remember, we're a company that makes and sells cars, right?
Since when?
If it's viable. Great. And so that's the whole point is, hey man, does this work? Is this a viable business opportunity? So we're showing it off. And yeah, so far the input has been very positive because at the end of the day, people want good racing, especially for Porsche. They just want the part support. They want the camaraderies there, of course, the good competition, level playing field in awesome locations with good sanctioning bodies. And, that's kind of, Porsche does that really well. We have a lot of different series. Yeah, there it is. And it sounds crazy. It's loud. And that's the thing is like, oh, EVs are quiet. No, they're not. They're quiet because engineers are trying to be conservative with noise regulations, with drive-by sound regulations. That's a big deal around the world right now. And that GT40 performance does not have to abide by those regulations. So straight cut gears
for everything.
all the things. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
and
amazing.
You're sponsored by Deutsche Bahn Schenker, so you can deliver the mail with that car, or other packages and parcels.
Exactly. We deliver. Yeah,
that's right.
That's right. Do you ever think, speaking of motorsports, do you think there'll ever be a full EV running Le Mans for a full race?
I don't know. I can't see that far into the future. I don't see why not. Not now, but very soon. I don't see why not, because here's the thing: electrification, especially from a motorsports perspective, is pretty new. I mean, we just renewed our contract with into Formula E, so we're still pursuing that. We're still learning a lot from Formula E as far as battery management, how durable these things are, how much you can push materials. Like, it's such a different set of circumstances. You know, we're basically back into the 1930s, 1940s with internal combustion, but in a weird way, because back in the 1930s and 40s, there was very few government regulations that determined how a car could operate, what it could consume or not consume. Here, while there's a ton of space of innovation capability, there's a hodgepodge of rods and filters above that include government regulations, social acceptance, environmental concerns for manufacturing and recycling. Like, there's a bunch of different externalities there that are unintended consequences the direction of EV development. Motorsports is a little bit different because it has less of those constraints, but it chases money too, and the money's in the production cars, not in racing right now. So once that kind of evens out, once there's a racing class where EVs can kind of exist on their own and be profitable on their own, that's when we'll see huge inroads in advancement.
So I know that at least one of our YouTube regulars, whose name I forget, even though I email back and forth with him, his screen name though is ALMX5DP. I know motorsports is near and dear to his heart because we subscribe to his YouTube channel and he shares track days in his Miata, which he just asked regarding high performance driving events and Porsche's sort of support of that in customer cars. Craig and I were recently up at Road America for an event that we go to pretty much every year, and there's like one like charger on site. Is Porsche now currently investing in any chargers at tracks? How are they looking into that? How are they supporting maybe right now Taycan owners that want to go to the track?
Right now at the moment we are starting to roll out a destination charging program, utilizing our 19.2 kilowatt wall box charger. You can get a Taycan with a 19.2 kilowatt OBC. Now, it's not a fast charger, but the idea here is, the Taycan's a sedan. You can take it on the track, and it works quite splendidly on the track. But having spoken to a lot of these boutique kind of track condo owners, or a lot of Taycan owners, what a lot of Porsche owners do is they take their Taycan from their office in Midtown, drive it up to the track, either Willow Springs or Atlanta Motorsports Park or what have you. That's where their GT3 or GT4 or their car, the race prep car is kept. They'll plug their Taycan into a level 2 charger for 3-4 hours, which is more than enough for the drive back home, and they'll do a couple of lapping sessions. Maybe they're with an instructor or otherwise. That is actually not that uncommon, shockingly so. So we've started this destination charging program for 19.2 kilowatt because at the moment that's all anyone's really asking for. Right. Unfortunately, I don't have the URL off the top of my head, but basically you apply and our charging team looks at it, sees the feasibility. Is it a Porsche compatible location? And if so, then we gift you a charger, basically.
Nice. So if you
And
have a rich enough clientele,
yeah, exactly. And that location gets put into the Porsche PCM, the Porsche Communications Management Navigation Database, so it's searchable. That's the key. And so if you have a business, restaurant or something by a track, on a track, and that's the type of clientele you want to attract, then it's pretty smart way to do it.
right? Um, let's say we had some preloaded Porsche questions for you, plus a couple have come in sort of as we've been chatting. So I'd kind of like to move a little bit into that. And today, I'm going to lead into this with today. If you go on to the EV Pulse website or pretty much anywhere else on the internet, you'll see that.
What is the URL, Chad?
That is evpulse.com.
I'll have to visit that and favorite it.
You should. Your name's right there. 7 global automakers have decided that they're going to actually make a joint venture. It's not named yet, but for some reason they call it We Charge North America, but I don't think that's the actual name. Basically, they're joining forces to build out their own charging network. Electrifying America is came from, of course, the ramifications of Dieselgate, but really the only major competitive charging network out there is sort of Tesla. Now, I know that Porsche and Mercedes, having talked to reps from both companies, you, Calvin, and your counterparts over there, with EVs, a premium or a luxury experience goes beyond just the car. It's the ordering experience, it's the showroom experience, it's the after service. It's, in the case of EVs, it's charging, and the current state of charging outside of Tesla's network is pretty abysmal. So I think that we can say, hey, more competition is good. What you've mentioned some just now with destination charging at racetracks and stuff. How is Porsche trying to make the charging experience better for its customers specifically?
The number one thing we can do is probably participate with charging consortiums like Charin, wherever possible, to ensure the protocols that are being used to authenticate and authorize charging sessions, our cars fall in line with that and work as expected. Using off-the-shelf APIs, not trying to do anything proprietary. That's the number one thing we can do. We do support our kind of second cousin removed at EA. But at the same time, we do understand that the majority of our customers, they're not taking their Taycan on long distance road trips. Media do. I know, I'm very happy when media take our Taycan on long distance road trips. Whenever there's a software update or anything on a Taycan, I have a 960 something mile loop that I take from Atlanta all the way down to Cape Canaveral and back. And I don't make it an even 1,000 because basically if I have more than 40 miles DTE when I pull into the office, I know it'll do 1,000, so I don't push it that hard. It's easy. I remember doing it the first time and thinking, this is really a pain in the butt. And now I don't even think about it anymore. Even with all the trials and tribulations that CCS charging is having, the difference from 2019 to now is amazing. I'm the PR guy, so I'm supposed to be positive.
Right. You're supposed to love everything you do and hate everybody else.
Yeah, but having said that, you look at a map, 2019, charging desert, absolutely true. Now you look at a map today, it's a lot less. The equipment isn't great, but it's there. And, speaking as an OEM, just getting things planted to the ground is monumental. At some point, they're going to have to go back. EA is going to have to go back and actually maintain these things, I hope. That's out of our purview, unfortunately. The one saving grace that we have in all this is we know that, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of our customers, they're not road tripping their Taycan. They're just driving it from home to work and back.
Well, they have a private jet. So
And and for them, home charging, office charging, that takes care of quite a lot.
That may
I've
increase
seen
though. That may increase though with an electric Macan though, possibly. I would assume that
if
buyer
any,
is different. Go on.
actually
Sorry.
the other way around. Electric Macan, at this point we're expecting, based on Macan driving behavior, we're expecting even more at home because just average trip length of Macan buyers is less than average trip length of Taycan owners. Sorry, owners, not buyers. Taycan owners versus Macan owners. Macan owners
exactly
are
the
doing a lot
opposite of what you might think.
Yeah.
Macan owners are doing one of two things. Either they're doing kid duty. So think about your house, schools, tutors, piano practice, band, football, soccer, all these things.
Kumon.
Or on the flip side, our more well-to-do, kind of what you would consider straight out of central casting Porsche customer, well-to-do, a little bit more white in the hair, and they're what I like to call their combat radius is pretty small. And if you go look at Porsche CPO Macan and look at the mileages, that susses that out. And so
I bring up Kumon as a joke because have you ever seen a company with a worse logo? It's literally a sad face. Bring your kids to this after school. They will look just like our logo after 2 hours.
But the thing is I think as a parent, you look at that and go, man, that is a face of rigor and education.
Yes.
What is so I'm assuming 911s are driven the least. Is that a fair assumption?
Mileage wise?
Yeah.
I don't have that information handy.
Okay.
It would be competing between 911 and 718, obviously.
And then what's the mileage like King? Is that like Panamera?
Probably Cayenne.
Cayenne? Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious because the conception of like a Macan driver and stuff like that, like,
and it's going to be very different based on market as well. I mean, here in the U.S., Panamera doesn't get a lot of love, namely because we have speed limits, and our road infrastructure doesn't support super sleek, land-based bullet trains like it does in Germany. I mean, in Germany, the distances are just long enough where like you can actually make that decision, like, do I take a plane, a train, or my car? And based on seasonality, how many stops you want to do, what you're doing, that'll determine what mode you take, not necessarily the cost, because gas is super expensive in Germany. Trains are much less expensive but not direct. Planes are in the middle ground, but you still have to connect that last mile on both ends of the journey. But if you have the right route and the right distance, a Panamera GTS on the Autobahn or Panamera Turbo, I don't know, man. That I can't think of a better way to cover some kilometers.
And you don't have to ride with the unwashed masses like you do on airplanes or on trains. So there you go. Unless you have your own private train car.
Yeah.
NACS. Cal, it's a question I was going to ask you prior to us recording this, and then again it was asked in the chats. You mentioned it briefly, just as a competitor sort of network. You mentioned CCS. Obviously Electrify America needs to upgrade some of its old hardware. They've already said they're going to do support of NCIS. That's a criminal investigation service. NACS, sorry.
The Tesla plug, if people don't know,
That's the
North American charging standard, which isn't a standard at all. But
what is Porsche's official stance?
Officially, we're considering it. Obviously, we're always taking into consideration customer demands. A lot of Taycan customers, about 40% of Taycan buyers, are new to Porsche. Guess where they came from, right? And so we're hearing a lot about it from our new buyers. They want that same seamless experience, and we're considering it. We're testing it. Will it actually make it through? We're not sure. There's some aspects of the NACS system that are not that doesn't show off what our engineers worked really hard to do, charging capability wise. There's a lot of unanswered questions from a back-end perspective. just because the plug is different doesn't mean that the backend software is going to change. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing that really is holding up a lot of this is the hardware. Is there enough capacity to manufacture? Can this be rolled out sustainably? Will some other company come along with an NACS2 electric boogaloo, and everyone has to switch again? And so as an OEM, the last thing we want to do is sow customer doubt. We don't want our customers wondering and holding back a buying decision based on a what if. At the moment, we're committed to CCS. It works. It works in the application that we have it in. I know a lot of our buyers have Tesla plugs when they're doing destination charging on road trips, and that works fine for them. I'm very happy that AC wise, it's all the same. Just the plug shape is different. And yeah, I mean, we'll keep at it until something clicks and we have to move one way or the other.
I know that like right now, at least Tesla superchargers are all 400 volts setups. Version 4 is not supposed to be. Version 4 is supposed to have longer cables and stuff too, though I'm not sure where the rollout is on that presently. And right now, as it stands, a Taycan will outcharge any Tesla by at least 30 kilowatts peak over the whole charge cycle. I'm not sure how it fares out. Teslas tend to be pretty conservative with their charging curves these days. So it may be a wash. It may not. I don't know. Also, there's some interesting things about NACS presently. Like it doesn't support V to L. So there's some V to L functionality out there now that people like. And as grid management becomes more and more important, that's going to become kind of a requirement. Elon has said that it's not a difficult task to get NACS to support V to L, but he's currently rebranding Twitter as X right now. So who knows where we're going with that.
Perfect opportunity for me to mention Mission X, our new concept, electric concept hypercar. Thank you, Elon.
You inspired Twitter's rebrand. There you go.
Yeah.
Powered by Porsche.
I'm sighing so hard.
The cars right now are 800 volts. Enzro from the chat asks about 900 volts. I know you said that GT4 Racer is 900. What's your thoughts on that? When do you expect to see that? Is that something we should get excited about? Is there any practical customer benefit right now? And then
at this point, not really. I mean, and again, we're talking a difference of only maybe 50 volts in real application, because the Taycan fully charged is over 800, over level 800. And when it's discharged, it's in the low 700s. And so the GT4E performance, that's a fully charged pack, and discharge, it'll be down in the 700s as well. So I wouldn't be hung up so much necessarily on 8 versus 9. Not now, depending on cell chemistries and stuff that don't necessarily sag as much, that then it becomes more of a talking point. But for the moment, I think basically there's the two classes. It's the 400s and the 800s, and that's really the differentiator.
We sort of already talked about some future product regarding Macan and 718 and stuff like that. So I think we've beaten that dead horse. But 911, it's not the car you currently represent, but you have in the past. We've talked a little bit about 911 before. Is it, as the company, I don't remember the exact specifics of when Porsche said it's going to stop selling new gas cars, whatever the goal is on that. Is that with an asterisk with 911 being separate? Does the ethos of 911 support electrification? I mean, probably a hybrid for sure, but what can you tell us and what can you say to reassure the 911 faithful that it'll still be a 911?
I mean, you just have to have faith at the engineers that are pulling the levers to make those decisions about what is and isn't, how the car uh, kind of carries the bloodline forward, as it were. What makes a GT car a GT car. The reality is powertrain. I mean, we went from carbureted, air cooled, mechanical fuel injection, electrical fuel injection, water cooled, variable valve timing, cam timing, intake, all kinds of different permutations of technology. But the whole point of it was and has always been and will remain driving enjoyment, driving pleasure. Porsches. I don't think it's a secret that we always kind of under promise over deliver. They always outperform their numbers, right? I remember when the Taycan, for example, going back to Taycan, sorry, but in 2019 when the spec sheet came out, I got a lot of flack from media saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe Porsche is making a car like this." Meanwhile, guys like you, people that were have been in the industry and have seen numerous new Porsche models come out with their spec sheets, with when other brands are coming out with cars with 500 horsepower, we're still putting out 350, 375 or whatever, and there'd be no rebuttals on that, because a lot of the traditional media knew it's not about the number for Porsche, it's about the experience, about does it deliver on the brand promise. When you get on if you can pry yourself out of bed early on a weekend morning and get on a twisty road, does it give you the feeling, the good feeling, the vibes, as it were, right? The Taycan does that. To a certain extent, even the Cayenne and the Macan do that. I know for sure the Panamera does it. 911's definitely. In fact, if anything, 911 defines that, and that's the key. Is no matter what the powertrain source is, as long as it instills that joy, that's kind of the whole. That's what'll make it work. And of course, as long as it has funky cup holders, right?
Oh yeah, yes.
Well, and any battery-powered 911 will have to have an air-cooled battery. Let's be clear.
No, I don't think we'll ever. I never say never, but I know for sure that there'll probably has to be some ICE version of a 911 somewhere along the line, just because motorsports requirements and things like that. So, another topic is not too much talked about is, Porsche is a global car company. We sell in a lot of markets, and not all of those markets have a electric infrastructure, nor will they in the next 5 years. So
Right.
What happens to those markets? Do we just stop selling cars to them? So,
Sure.
maybe certain markets won't get certain cars and other markets will. But, ICE, for better or for worse, is going to be around for a little bit longer. Yeah.
I know, and I know that we've kind of gone back and forth on this in terms of getting the stars to align for a Taycan road trip. But Enzo again asks in the chat. He says, I still want a Taycan, but the range is not enough for me. At least 2 weeks a month, I do 600 to 800 miles. I'll let you sort of address that, but what I'll say is my experience in Taycan has been that the EPA range is not accurate, but in a good way. These cars tend to definitely under promise and over deliver, and with the ability to charge it up to 270 kilowatts, if your drive route that you take does fall into a state to where a station can deliver that juice, you're only sitting for 5 to 7 minutes to get real world range.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily there right yet. But if you have anything to add on that, that would be great. And then, like, when do you think that we'll ever see a Porsche that'll do 350 to 400 miles? Is that something that we should worry about or target for? Like, what do you?
We'll get to that. Well, I'll go in order.
Okay.
For me, from our side, what Porsche can go 600 miles? No, there's not a single Porsche that can do that, not being driven in a Porsche way, right? Sure, you can hypermile, but that's not why Porsche is how we are. To make up for that, we give the driver other tools and capability to be able to extract maximum performance in other ways. So for the Taycan, it's in charging performance, like you mentioned earlier. And so the way that our engineers look at it is not so much what the range is of your journey or charge on a pack, it's Porsche, so we do things a little more dynamically. So we look at average speed, time on the ground. How long does your journey take from when you hit well, I guess Taycan, you don't even have to hit the start button, but when you get in the car versus when you get out of the car at the end of your trip. That's what is the important number for us. I'm exceeding 70-mile-an-hour average speeds on road trips in a Taycan, even with one or two not perfect charging sessions thrown in there. So from that perspective, and my colleagues from Germany are doing likewise. And so from our perspective, at least for the Taycan, we're kind of done. That is the car. The way you're supposed to drive it is you go drive 3 hours or so, stop, charge for 10 minutes, drive 3 hours, stop 10, 15 minutes, go 3 hours. And that's how you kind of leapfrog and keep a high average speed. Driving behavior will give you more than anything. We've had a guy, Wayne Gertis, drive a Taycan rear drive over 400 miles, and he didn't do anything wild. He just drove conservatively.
Are you sure it's Wayne? I've seen Wayne drive.
He was behind a tractor trailer, 6 inches off the bumper, probably.
I saw his average speed. It wasn't out of. I mean, he wasn't breaking down. Cops weren't looking at him going too fast for sure.
He wasn't doing a cannonball run.
No, but at the same time, that's a normal. His average speed is actually a normal family of 4 driving from Atlanta to Destin Beach or Panama City down in Florida. That is, you know what I mean? So you kind of have to understand actual user behavior and filter, or not filter out, because that's the problem. People are filtering out what's actually happening versus what they perceive as happening. I love going on road trips in both ICE and EV cars. And I remember when Taycan came out, I did a road trip from the office in Atlanta to Colorado to do some off-roading. And I timed everything. My average stoppage time was 17 minutes. I thought it was 5. It's just you don't think about the time it takes to walk into the convenience store, the time spent standing in line with for me, peanut M&Ms and whatever, going to the bathroom, waiting for the person in front of you to get out. You don't add any of that stuff in mentally. In your mind, all you did is I slid my card, plugged in, I went to the counter, got my food, and I got back. That's it. But if you actually put a stopwatch to it, it's not out of sorts. What I'm trying to say is if you're willing to make a little bit of adjustment in the way you drive and how you do your road tripping, there's no compromise to the time en route.
So peanut M&Ms.
Yes,
it says a lot about you.
It does. It really is.
That's a good choice.
It really is.
Well, because it doesn't melt at normal car temperatures. Normal. Okay. And if it falls in the cracks of the seat, you can still get it out. I'm not saying you eat it. You gotta have
the Arby's curly fries under your seat. You don't want to touch those.
Oh man. Yeah.
So looking at Enzo just followed up and want to thank you, Cal, for your answer. He has a Lucid order. We haven't spent a lot of time in the air, but we did get to spend some time in one recently. And the 60 seconds that I drove it wasn't my goal to drive the car. It was Craig's for a video we did. In the 60 to 90 seconds I was in that car, the driver's side power window didn't work. And there were some potential quality issues. I've talked to some of my colleagues. Aaron Bregman at cars.com was recently in a Lucid, and he wasn't getting close to the stated range. That doesn't mean he wasn't getting good range. I think they're claiming something like 450, 500 miles. So if he's in the 350 to 400 range, that's still a great amount of mileage. I just know that people haven't been necessarily hitting the EPA number on that. But yeah, it's an interesting time. I kind of wish I was in that situation to have to decide between, a Lucid or a Taycan or probably a Model S. I don't know. I've seen way too many cars with over. A what?
A Lightning.
Or a yes.
I like the Lightning a lot.
I mean, I do too.
Porsche should build a truck.
when
You want to really crack the American market? Put a bet on it.
put a bed on, that's true.
Get a Panamera,
Mhm.
fold the rear seats down, open the hatch. Man, it's
go.
about there. It's about there.
Take a Sawzall, just cut the hatch off. Taycan, is it getting old? Are we going to get a new one? Give us the deets. Let us.
I mean,
know you got other new cars coming, but
we've basically had a pretty significant software update every year. So the car's been kept modernized pretty nicely. I think its strengths are still quite ever present. Its charging performance, its route planning capability, its dynamics, is still pretty good. We've increased the paint to sample capability for that, new materials, interior finishes, wheels to keep the car fresh. Having said that, yeah, I mean, we've had customers now that are just starting on their just starting their third Taycan lease. So and not because they didn't like the other, that's just the natural cycle.
right.
And so generally, and again, I can't speak to that far down the line, but if you are a fan of the way Porsche does stuff, we always have a mid-cycle kind of facelift.
Right.
In fact, the Cayenne, the third gen Cayenne just had one just a few months ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you can. If I was in your position, that's what I'd be expecting. A little bit of a refresh.
I know one cool thing about Taycan too. There's running jokes about Porsche. There's a lot of running jokes about Porsches, but one of the running jokes is that they charge you more money to take stuff off the car. And I think Jeremy Clarkson even made a joke on Top Gear once saying that if you walked by a Porsche dealership and didn't even go inside, they would charge you £1 million, kind of a thing. But one thing that I think is really clever with Taycan is there have been software updates to improve the range and battery charging and all sorts of stuff like that. But basically, you're making that software available to all the drivers. So very much like Tesla's business model, a 2020 Taycan is a 2023.
Yep.
I mean, it's not, but it is, because it has the same software, the same performance, the same updates. Everything kind of exists and is as new and fresh as if you bought a new one.
Yeah. In fact, I'm not proud of it, but we had a couple of model year 21s all the way up until the end of 22, just with all the software updates. As we all know what happened in 21 to cause significant supply chain issues for our company, and we couldn't get new cars.
I heard there's a Mercedes boat on fire at the moment. So,
my point being is we're learning how to keep the car fresh. In fact, we just rolled out an OTA. That actually works on the high voltage battery system. So before, we do OTAs only for non-essential, non-safety performance related topics such as map, radio, just infotainment, fixing bugs like that. We would do that OTA, but anything related to performance, safety, that we would make that a workshop update. But we just finally pushed our first high voltage battery module OTA. So the update itself, I don't think is really all that cataclysmic. It's more of just a kind of dip in the toe to see what the process is like and how it works and how our owners adapt to it. But yeah, we're getting on board. We have CarPlay. We came out earlier this summer with a version of Apple, the My Porsche app that supports EV map routing in Apple Maps. That's a mouthful. Say that 10 times fast. That allows people to use Apple Maps to navigate to charging stations. It's great if you want to open your route up to more different charging routes. Now, granted, the native navigation can do that, but really the strength of the navigation system in the Porsche is to filter just to Porsche charging stations, so you can do plug and charge, right? And you can set it so that you're only navigating to the EA stations that have 350 kilowatt dispensers, battery preconditioning, all that jazz. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
But maybe you want a slightly simpler experience, a little bit easier to navigate. And so Apple Maps takes care of that for us, where it calculates where you should go and charge up. It communicates with the car data. Having said that, because Apple Maps doesn't know your authorization, your codes, or doesn't have access to that, you have to activate the chargers manually. You have to switch to guns, as they say, and have your phone and with the apps or card RFID style in that way.
Well, if you stay tuned, you might actually see a feature or two on our channel talking about the pros and cons of that as Cal gives the thumbs up. We've been talking a little bit longer than I asked you to, Cal, but do you mind taking a few general questions with us before
sure.
we go?
Yeah.
We've got some that are preloaded and some that I think are just, I think your input would also be extremely valuable on, even though they're not Porsche related. So, Craig, you got those queued up?
I do. So we did a review of the Lexus RZ 450e, which I hope all of you watched. If not, go and check that out on the EV Pulse YouTube channel. But AVDP9095 commented, good car, good range considering the small battery pack, excellent warranty, an industry first and most comfortable choice in segment. Way better fit and finish than Tesla, way better EV service, resale value, warranty, etc. Nothing wrong with this Lexus. Stop bashing Toyota/Lexus.
I actually went back and forth with this commenter because 196 miles of range isn't.
No, it's terrible.
It's
not competitive.
It's not enough. I know that, Calvin, you would say, "Oh no, that's plenty," because Porsche drivers only drive that much, and Lexus drivers probably are the same. I mean, there probably is a 200 mile. The 200-mile limit is probably more than enough. Partly it's because you go with the 20-inch wheels. You know, the bigger wheels hurt range. I know that on Taycan, if you get the cool GTS wheels, that eats your range quite a bit too, compared to some of the more aero-friendly Taycan wheels. But I think there's a lot of value in fit and finish and battery warranty and stuff like that. What's your guys' warranty right now, Cal, on your?
It's the same normal 80-year. I don't remember the exact however many miles off the top of my head, but our battery warranty is in line with the industry.
Yeah.
It's a pretty stout battery, pretty safe. We haven't had any issues with it. People have run over things and punctured it, and no issues. So,
Right.
Well, that's good, because when
knock
issues
on
happen,
wood, it
they're
stays
bad.
To be fair, to be fair, when issues happen to gas tanks, it is also
true.
Wait,
bad.
gas cars can catch on fire too? What about
I
eFuel
have-
cars?
Who
Can
knew?
those?
But yes, to this commenter's question about the RZ, there are many wonderful reasons to purchase a Toyota or Lexus: quality, reliability, resale value. But the RZ just in many ways isn't competitive. So there you go.
And the reason why we make that statement is we've driven literally everything in this segment, and
just about.
if you're going to spend,
the lyric.
if you're going to spend 60 grand on an EV, you really should buy an eGMP car. I honestly, at this point, unless you have some reason not to, the eGimps are where it's at. Now, if you have 90 to spend, 93 to spend, then you buy something else. But at 60, this is the way to go. The Lexus isn't the way to go. But in defense of the RZ, of those ET and GA cars, for one, the Lexus's wheels don't fall off, which is good. They fixed that before they shipped them. And it is by far the nicest of the group. It feels like it's been baked. That extra 6 months they had to finish it. Not only does it feels like a Lexus. Wish it had a little bit more range. I think that's really, and maybe a glove box, though I don't think that's a huge deal to me. I don't know when the last time I've used a glove box.
Ford engineers put an airbag in the Mustang glove box.
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
Toyota engineers could figure out how to have a glove box,
or they could use
and a radiant heater,
or they could just use the weird cup holders, like the ones that kind of pop out, and then you got room for the radiant heater and the cup holder. Look, I'm telling you, I'm designing the new 911 right now, as we speak. This next one's my favorite comment.
It was from my EQE interior feature from Dylan Zacconi 7253. It's just it's not a question, it's a comment. It just says, "Shut up." So yeah, I mean, nobody made you watch it there. You could have clicked away. There's this thing called tabs in your browser. You can have different things open. So,
but thanks for the engagement.
yes,
Woo!
we appreciate that. Another comment, or rather actual question from that same EQE interior feature from Cali Piexagato. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong.
Yeah.
Nice, but how tall are you? Without knowing that, I can't get a sense for the amount of legroom in the back seat. I'm about 6 feet tall, so somewhat tall, but not that tall.
I'm 5'10", Craig's 6 feet.
How tall is Calvin?
Yeah,
as well 6.
Yeah,
but
I'm the short one here.
probably 70 more pounds than Craig.
It's glandular.
Well, I have you both beat, so but I'm 5'10", so I'm probably more average size. Yes, all hail the YouTube algorithm. Woo!
Old Bill 1807 sounds like a prospector. Commented on our
use your
charging
prospector
etiquette
voice.
EV basics. Yes. Old Bill. There's gold in them hills. A clarification to point number 1, do use the appropriate charging speed when available. If I pull in and the only charger available is a 350 kilowatt charger, I'm using it and not waiting for 150 to become free. And I think that's a very fair assessment. Absolutely. If you have a Chevy Bolt and you pull
this
in,
hurts me. Yeah.
This
hurts me.
Yeah.
Just because the Taycan, it's like the number one thing that it does good is, and then there's a Bolt parked there,
right?
And I love the Bolt, so I don't.
There's nothing, and and it's almost always, and typically it's typically a younger buyer, which is great. We need more affordable cars. I mean, we just need more. I mean, having Chevy say they're actually going to do a new version of the Bolt is fantastic.
What a PR disaster, though.
Yeah, no,
we're killing the car.
It?
Oh, sorry, no.
Wait, or what? Or was it? We're talking about it.
We are.
Yeah, it could be a big strategy.
I was poking fun at GM to one of my GM colleague friends today about like CarPlay and the bolts and stuff, and it was suggested that maybe the news could have been handled a little bit differently, but ultimately, at the end of the day, more affordable cars is good.
It seems like they don't have a strategy when they do stuff like that. Like, who's running the ship?
Well, our Bolt review is our most popular review on the channel and the second most popular video on our channel. So there's a lot of demand for it. So I'm glad that it's coming back. But yeah, I mean, there've been times that we've been trying to film, charging videos or stuff like that, and we pull in and we need 150 kilowatts, and the only one opens at 50 because there's a Bolt in the 150 or whatever. It's like, oh, come on.
This will hopefully be one of those things that gets resolved as more and more chargers are put in the ground. I mean, load balancing chargers, we still don't have a lot of those here, but that's basically, there's no power on the kiosk because all the kiosk can deliver whatever power level the car requires. And instead of the car having to go to a specific kiosk, the kiosk will just deliver
what it needs,
the amount that the car needs. And there's a max, like if you put, like there was that picture of that Hummer there, if you load up all the spaces of empty dead Hummers, okay, that probably won't work.
Don't talk to me about trying to get a charge curve video shot of the Hummer and my experience with load balance chargers, because
boy, that's a lot of juice it's requesting.
And I didn't realize that everything that I read about how EA load balances their chargers was inaccurate at the station I was at. So I was peaking at 270. I was peaking at 270 kilowatts, which was fantastic, but not what the car could do. So then I had to go drive a bunch of range off to go back to plug into the only non-load balanced 350, and then I got 345. So
Big Daddy 1363 Chad had a question about your VinFast VF8 video.
Yes.
How's the air conditioning? Let's try it in the desert area. Will air conditioning cause less mileage? Range.
I'll answer this in reverse order. Will air conditioning cause less mileage? Yeah, typically. It's
I see Emmy Hall.
Yeah, well, you do see Emmy Hall in that video. She was there. She was her and Robbie were shooting with me at the time. Yes, air conditioning will cause less range. It just does. let's try it in the desert area wasn't an option. And I don't know how soon these cars are even getting in press fleets. VinFast has had some issues. But I will say that the air conditioning actually worked pretty well. I did not have problems with the air conditioning in that car. I tend to like it a little bit cooler in the car. Comes with being fat and always warm. But so I like ventilated seats, and I like,
ventilated seats are awesome.
I like good air conditioning. Like the Hyundai I was in last week had excellent air conditioning, and this Crown that I'm in right now, it takes a little bit longer to get cold. I'm like, oh no, give me the Korean air conditioning back. That's what I need.
Yes.
Korea in the summer is hot and humid, so yeah. Good place to test it.
Overall, though, I would still wait on the VinFast on the VF8s.
Yes, just
if you
wait
really have really have a desire to get one, okay. But the pricing isn't super competitive. The battery warranty is great. It's 10 years, 125,000. No, I'm sorry, 10 years unlimited miles for the battery. And I think the bumper-to-bumper warranty is 10 years, 125,000 miles, something like that. So, like, the warranty is, like, insane. But, yeah, it works okay.
And then we had the Hyundai Ioniq 5N first look video. And
somebody whose name was...
Ban biofuels, which I don't understand. I suspect, is that a political agenda there? I'm not sure. But this person comments, do adult-minded people really need fake engine sounds?
Yes.
How often do you need to drive 160 miles per hour?
All the
Will
time.
that much acceleration cause hernia or cure a hernia?
Yes.
You need to talk to your doctor, my friend. The dealership
EV is
and the
right for
Hyundai
you.
Motor Group cannot help you with that.
I will tell you that in the Taycan GTS, which is not the Ioniq 5N, in the Taycan GTS, the feeling of the PDK shifting adds to the experience. Don't know if it makes the car faster, but it adds to the experience. And the very specific, I don't know what Porsche's official brand name is on it, but the fake noises that it makes, sound.
If I might rebut,
yes,
it's called on point number 1, Porsche electric sports sound.
Okay.
Point number 2, it is not fake. It is remastered versions of the sound of the real motor that were recorded and then synthesized. So a good analogy that someone gave me is it's like an electric guitar. So it's not, you need an actual guitar to make the noise that then goes to the distortion pedal to come out the speaker. And so that's what you're hearing.
I have a simpler solution. Straight cut gears.
So here's the thing. We say this because we have experience with all these EVs. A lot of the talk about how to make a car, an EV specifically, more emotional or engaging is only because we don't have a full generation of enthusiasts that have gone through these cars to really define and understand what brings emotionality to a car. Because fundamentally, right, an EV is a car. And so then there's two sides of this coin. On the one side, you're looking at cars as pure emotion, less performance. So V12s, ITBs, that sort of thing, where the sound, the gated shifters, that tactility is important. 0 to 60 lap times at that point are not. Then on the flip side, it is the performance of the car, steering feel, how the brakes and the accelerator feel, how it tips in, how it comes out of a corner. That's the more performance mechanics. And those two right now, I'm centering my hands here, are in competition. Because people are attributing the performance stuff to the emotional stuff. If we have a V12, it'll be a performance car. If we have the sounds of ITBs, it'll be a performance car. No, this stuff, the steering feel, brakes, accelerator, that is what makes a performance car. Once that is understood, you can then make the car do those things really well. And the natural responses that come from that will then define the sounds for performance cars going forward. So that's the thing. We don't know that. We gave a nod to the traditional cars with the PDK in the Taycan and with the 1-2 shift. What if we'd have more gears? A funny little tidbit to take away is all of our plug-in hybrids, the motor is in front of the transmission.
Mhm.
So, a Panamera PHEV, a 918 Spider, a Cayenne PHEV. Well, Cayenne's a Tiptronic, so that's Panamera and the 918. You're driving in 7-8 speed EV when you're in electric mode. It's and I believe some other cars do that too.
Yeah, some of the
and
Hyundai
so-
Kia products, yeah,
Exactly.
hybrids.
And so what happened if they were to beef up that side of it, right? And so it's just these things, we're in this transitory period where we're trying to apply what worked in the old days to the new. And, it's some stuff is going to work, some stuff's not. I applaud all these manufacturers for trying, because that's giving us a lot of innovation. It's really making people rethink what a car is, both from like I said, the emotional perspective and the tactile perspective, the performance perspective. So yeah,
And
good on them.
In addition to all of that, in addition to literally all of that, which I think is all very exciting as its opportunities to innovate in a way that maybe you couldn't before. If I'm bombing down a back road, if I'm up on the crest, EVs are quiet, whether it's by design or just through the fact that there's no motor. And Porsche's, like the Taycan, is quiet inside, even moving at speed. So it's very easy to when you lose that extra sense of knowing how fast you're going, having something in the background that can help audibly communicate how quick you're moving is important for me in terms of building confidence when driving on a road. Whether the sound is what's in the GTS, which I think sounds great, even though ALM X5DP says that it's just an MP3 file. I think it's probably...
Is it AL? Is it Al? Is it like Albert? Is it Alabama?
Alabama MX5.
It could be.
I'm going to say it's American Le Mans Daytona prototype, but oddly BMW X5 in the middle of it.
But I think he's right, and I think you're right in terms of the visual experience. Sports car driving is about... it's Alan, by the way.
My middle name, same spelling.
My middle name as well, except I spell it with 2 L's. It's a long story, but sports cars need to have a visual experience. Ant L asks e-tron or Taycan. I think Calvin has the answer, and I'll agree with what Calvin says. I actually think the e-tron's not that attractive, personally. But they do have physical climate controls in e-tron, and the ones in Taycan are on a touchscreen. So I guess if you care about that, maybe. But I don't know. If for nearly the same amount of money.
Can I say what a crazy world it is when you can pick a car based on what climate control system? What?
And then friend of all of ours, Mr. Stefan Ogbach is in the chat. Check it out. And he has a Toyota question, which obviously, Cal, you can't answer. You can try, though. Will the ET&G cars get better range and charging? I keep hearing there's a software update coming. All the commenters keep telling me there's a software update coming. Oh, stop complaining about...
Sounds like an easy excuse.
Stop complaining about charging speed and stuff like that. A software update is coming. It's like,
as more fleet miles come in and the regional managers of service departments see what's going on with the state of the batteries from all OEMs, that's how you know if people are driving it the way you think they are or they're not, and can we then start pushing the boundaries on charging or range, what the limits, the buffer side, all those things, and that only comes from time. And so, that's the thing, the key point, I think, for all I'm speaking on behalf of the entire automotive industry. Whoa. No one appointed me.
Change the subheading there.
Your viceroy of vehicles.
Right. Give it some, it's new. It's still new. Having started on the media side driving literal first gen EVs, I still think we're in the second gen of EVs. We're on the tail end of it for sure, but we're still in that second gen period where all the brands are exploring the space and what can and can't do. I don't know what the third gen, and by third gen, I'm talking fully baked, no usability from a usability perspective. It's now at that point nobody cares.
Mhm.
That's when nobody cares how the wheels move at that point.
Mhm.
And so
Calvin, what's your favorite Porsche of all time? If money were no object, or you had a time machine, or if you could have one car in your garage from the brand that you work for.
ooh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna do my cop out answer. I'm gonna do 964 Targa.
Craig?
964 Targa.
I don't know. I've never thought of that. My automotive tastes are antiquated and decidedly not sports cars.
Fair.
May I recommend a 356 coupe?
Yes, that would be wonderful, actually.
Yeah, you
Little
would be
bitty
very
air-cooled thing. Yes.
I love the sound of the V10 in the Carrera GT, but I'm gonna go newer. I'm gonna say 918. I mean, it's my favorite of the Holy Trinity. I love that it spits fire right behind your head. I love that it was 2014,
yeah.
and it's still modern.
It's very
I
much
mean,
so.
it's still like, again, I mean, so in a lot of ways, so is the LaFerrari and the P1, but like, it still is a modern car. And one reason Craig doesn't like it is you can take the roof panels off. It can be a convertible, and that's me. So
I could talk about 918s all day.
I might make an exception for a 911 Targa or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that roof is kind of cool.
That roof is.
It is.
That roof is pretty cool. Cal, I know you're in LA doing things you can't talk about, but I really appreciate you taking the time to help add some color to our first live stream, which went longer than we had anticipated. So your time is, of course, very much appreciated.
Glad I could contribute, and I'm glad it was organic. I'm glad we weren't just sitting here twiddling our thumbs, staring at each other.
No GMO, just organic.
Yes,
and
no antibiotics.
Well, and thanks for the folks in the chat, in the chat as well. I mean, that's Alan also says thanks, but yeah, it's
Thanks, Alan.
It's everything you read about YouTube live streams. You're like, oh yeah, your first couple, you're typically going to be just yelling out to the void, but treat it like you have an audience there, because the audience will eventually come. Oh, hey, look at that. Hi, hello, greetings. Are you at 1,000 subs yet, Michael? I'm asking directly into the chat.
You could just go to his YouTube channel.
I could just go to his YouTube channel.
There's this thing called tabs.
There is.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I learned about that earlier. Yes.
It's agreed. A new feature. They came out with it in 2009.
The guy with the 36 Ford is telling the owner of a media company how to use the internet.
It's a complex series of tubes.
It is. Yes. Yes. And stay tuned for Porsche news, both with our channel and just in general, because I believe I'm in a Discord with some fellow journalists, and at least one of them says that they're seeing you this weekend. So news is a coming. This one might actually have a PhD, so and I like him, so Craig, sir,
yes.
What's coming? What do you just got home? Where were you?
I was in New York City for an overnight trip, checking out the new Volvo EX30. Did a little video on that. 7 things to know about this exciting new all-electric SUV from the Swedish Chinese. Sudanese. I don't know. Sudanese.
Yeah, Sudanese. Yeah.
It looks so cute though, especially the cross-country one that they showed. It's got the little luggage carrier.
No, this could be. I posit this might be the most important Volvo of all time, because.
So about that, do you think SUVs are going to take off?
I'm not sure. I think this whole green thing is a kind of a fad.
Well, maybe it might. No, it's not. But ask our commenter. Well, not the commenters of this live stream.
Ban biofuels.
Some of our commenters will tell you that this is just a fad. That video comes out on Friday if you're watching the live stream. If you're watching this after the fact, just go check. It's probably
be there or be square.
Yes.
That's what the kids are saying these days.
And since this is our first live stream, I haven't really figured out. Oh, look
There's
at
footage.
that.
Look at
It's the
there
car.
it is. See, automakers, this is how you do it. You get an hour to shoot the car alone without a horde of people. There's a nice background, and there's good lighting.
Yes.
Something the colleagues at Volkswagen could have learned when they introduced the ID7. That's another story. No comment. I don't expect one.
but Calvin used to be on our side, so he probably has stories.
I try to. That's my always. I try to give any of my programs. I try to put myself in your position. Still, I still pretend I'm back in the media business, and it's like, what would I want? What would? And and so far it's worked pretty good.
It's like private time for doing video, even if it's an hour.
Yeah,
makes all the difference in the world. So you're not fighting crowds of people at an auto show or whatever. So if you guys, not just you,
we would actually bring just random people off the street to just get in your way. You would be the only media there, but there'd be 50 other people just kind of with their phone, just like walking in front of the camera.
That literally, Ben and I have a story about that. We were literally shooting a 911. You guys introduced at the Frankfurt Motor Show a few years ago. When we're sitting there, it was red, whatever. I don't even remember the model or the trim. We were doing a quick video on it, and we're waiting to shoot the car. And this guy gets in the driver's seat, and he's sitting in there for must have been 10 minutes, like poking at every possible feature, adjusting the rear view mirror. He wasn't one of the people with a clipboard and a tape measure, because we would have booted him out. But then he opens the door and proceeds to half get out of the car, and then starts putting things on his calendar on his phone and like answering a call or something. And we're just standing there like staring at him, and it's not, he just oblivious like what's happening.
That is such a pure auto show experience.
Yes, it is.
It really is. Detroit Day 2 is always that as well, back when the Detroit show was something, because you would get all the suppliers with the clipboards and
that was their day.
Also, we're unveiling the car. We're gonna have terrible lighting. It's going to be a white car with black accents, so it's really hard to get the camera exposure right. Yeah. And then everybody's going to be doing this with their phones.
Only spotlights. Exactly. And the spotlights are just moving constantly.
Yes, all over. And make sure the cars don't do a white car with black highlights. Just do a black car.
Yeah,
that's perfect with a darkened convention center and everything. Oh, it's so perfect.
Terabytes of vertical photos and video that will go onto an iPhone or an Android and then never be looked at again. But you got to shoot it and get in the way.
And you got to have the right trance music before you do the reveal as well.
Rant over.
I kind of miss those days. I mean, I don't. I
still think back to the last auto show back last year for the Dakar the reveal.
Mm-hmm.
That video, I know we poke fun, but honestly, that was pretty amazing. If you guys have a chance, check out the Dakar reveal video. They bring a lot of the 80s when the Dakar actually raced, the real Perry Dakar car raced, into the reveal. So it's just capture that vibe. I mean, because that's the thing. Ultimately, what are cars? Are they appliances or are they emotional? And for Porsche, the answer is very clear. It's for emotion. We always know that nobody needs the Porsche. You're buying one because you want one, and so the framing, how we do the business, is always going to be a little bit different. Whenever I hear a product review or a tester saying, this one costs too much, like literally nobody that's coming into a Porsche dealer is saying that. It's like, I want this one.
Yeah.
I will give you more money if I can get it in this color of my.
I want the $4,000 red air vent slats or whatever inside.
Well, it's paint to sample, but then you can do the custom paint, like the paint sample extreme.
Yes.
Like I mean,
money, but
whatever, right?
But yeah.
It's interesting because I also don't think that Porsche buyers are necessarily reading reviews. So it's like, how do you
go buy whatever they want?
Yeah, they're going to go buy whatever they're going to buy. So you're in a very interesting segment. Because you have some real opportunities to innovate, but also you're spoiled for choice at, let's say, $150,000, right? Like, so how do you innovate and be different? And in some ways, that segment's just as competitive as the compact crossover segment.
That's right.
Which it should you have a different mindset with it, obviously, but it's
Well, that's the thing is our competitors. I know the magazine guys. You guys have a feeling for who our competitors are from an automotive perspective. But if you look at our demographics, our competitors are sailboats, time like a vacation, an apartment in Nice. That's who we're competing against, and so we have to be every bit as exciting as those things.
I don't know how to swim, so a sailboat is not in my future, probably. But
well, that's why you need a boat, so you don't have to swim. That's how they do it.
Oh,
Yeah, they
fair
can stay
enough.
dry.
Well, we don't have any official close for this thing, so let's just wrap it up and say thanks again for Kyle for coming on. We'll try to do this again maybe in 2 weeks, unless some crazy things happen.
Unless consumer demand is high, then
unless consumer demand is high, and we'll do these daily. If you're still in the chat room, hit
no,
the
you will
thumbs up.
do them daily. No, we.
If you're still in the chat, give the video a thumbs up. That'll help other people find it on the YouTubes, because all hail the algorithm. Yeah, thanks again, guys.
Thanks so much. Thank you for watching, and Calvin, of course, a pleasure as always, colleague.
From my side, a warm welcome.
Von meiner Seite, jawohl.
Jawohl.